OSU Foundation, you should divest from fossil fuels because profiting from harmful extractive industries that jeopardize the lives of the people you claim to serve is short-sighted and ethically wrong.
I would like to preface these comments with the acknowledgement that people who are watching this video may not have been involved in previous conversations about the divestment of fossil fuels with the OSU Foundation. So just to acknowledge that and say that some of the statements that you might hear may sound agitated, frustrated, like they've come from people that have experienced some sort of barrier to their access to acknowledgement even of what they have to say.
At a university in a state that's taking such a leading position on like climate change policy and action, it's definitely disappointing to hear that we as a university are still investing so much money into fossil fuels.
I'm ashamed of this university being involved in the fossil fuel industry. I think it's a disgrace. After all the research that we at the university have done to show the problems we have with the world, that this foundation can continue to embarrass us all by being invested in fossil fuels is a disgrace.
Responsibility of an organization whose mission it is to serve the university. As someone who was deeply invested in the university while I was there and currently works with students from the university, I really appreciate the nature of the university being an educational institution grounded in principles of knowledge, of information, of community. And I think the investment in its students is really important, a really important piece of Oregon State University. And I think that the responsibility of an organization who claims to support a university like that is to fundamentally understand the calls to action from the students, from the faculty, from a group of people that they support.
OSU divesting is it's part of a international movement of institutions around the world doing similar kinds of things, and the goal is that OSU Divest will nudge and propel and push other institutions considering divestment to kind of move ahead and take action.
For me, battling fossil fuels started as one of many ways to combat climate change and the harm we as humans do to the planet, its ecosystems, its natural beauty. It's always been a tangible concept to me to eliminate one of the leading contributors to excess atmospheric CO2 in the current climate crisis. Now, divestment from fossil fuels is about so much more than that. I'm so passionate about being a leader in the divest movement because it's a movement about the future. I need personally to truly believe that that future exists, one which values sustainable harmony between people and the environment, which values justice over oppression, values flourishing ingenuity over ruthless extraction, social growth and equality over exploitation, a future where leaders respect and recognize not only when science and fact tell them it's time for a change, but also when the people they claim to represent demand that change. Divestment is a response to a current older generation who has for my entire life told me they believe in and care about that future and yet continue to do the very actions that destroy it.
I'm a student from Brazil, and it's very hard for me to talk about this issue because for me climate change is not only about losing species or losing biodiversity. I think for me this is about justice. People in the US and in place of privilege, they don't understand how people in the global south are in the front line. I urge the university to do what is the right thing because there is no other way. It can't be just about profit because people are losing their livelihoods, people are losing their homes, and people are losing their lives in places where you might not be.
Let me say two things about investing in fossil fuels. You might think that will bring interest and will bring more money. This is most probably not going to happen. Projections for the future about economic growth tell us that growth is going down and there is no other way to stop it. But even if you were right, if you were right that investing in fossil fuels will bring up your interests, that might happen very well at the cost of dramatic environmental and social injustice all over the world.
So how much money have you lost in fossil fuel investments since you failed to divest 3 years ago when you first asked?
OSU, I would like to speak to your regents, to your finance people, to your supporters, and most importantly to the students who go to school here. You have a choice. You have a choice of divestment from fossil fuel infrastructure that is ruining our state, ruining our waterways, our air, our land, and most importantly, ruining the future for our children. Even more importantly than that, my own grandchildren, which I have 11. What I'd like to tell you is there are solutions. Those solutions are to invest. Take all those dirty energy monies and put them into clean solar, clean wind.
Reinvestment after divestment is a strategy to move the money pulled out from fossil fuels, and it doesn't have to be lost. Reinvestment directs that money at any industry, research effort, technology, innovation, stock, anything which represents and values sustainability, climate justice, social justice, global reform, and a commitment to a future worth living in and fighting for.
So the reason I'm here asking for the OSU Foundation to divest from fossil fuels is in part because the university itself has just created a strategic plan that calls for advancing the science of sustainable Earth ecosystems, improving human health and wellness, and promoting economic growth and social progress. And I feel like it is painfully and destructively ironic that we continue to invest in industries and organizations that actively destroy Earth ecosystems, actively militate against human health and wellness, and actively demote the livelihoods of indigenous and working peoples across the globe. Without some kind of divestment policy in fossil fuels, we will continue to live in a state of abject contradiction and irony, and I find that completely untenable.
As a senior at OSU in the OSU horticulture program studying viticulture, I find it very important for the university to pay attention to the industries that are suffering because of climate change and that will eventually have to massively adapt with huge economic impacts based on climate change. And if the university really wants to support those programs that it likes to show on brochures and show to the public, then it really needs to put its first foot forward and actually commit to protecting those industries and protecting their ability to thrive in the coming decades.
Oregon State University keeps saying how it's ready to embrace, acknowledge, and celebrate diversity. And my question is simply whether the intention of the university to protect the students of colors and students coming from the global south, such as me, goes beyond the walls of these institutions. Because while I feel safe being in Corvallis, in a place of privilege, I know that back home, family and friends are in the front line of climate change.
I think that it is kind of ridiculous that we're still invested in fossil fuels here. We are supposedly a leader in many industries. We have the best forestry program in the world, or in the country. And based on my experiences elsewhere as a veteran, as an employee for several Fortune 500 companies, Nissan, Boeing, Spirit Aerosystems, and experiences in the U.S. Navy, I've seen firsthand what giant organizations that fail to take into consideration their actions, how those actions can be a detriment to localized communities, but also the world. I think if we, as an institution, want to continue to be a leader, we have to be ahead of the game. We have to take steps in order to ensure that this community can continue to exist.
We're asking you to help in this fight against climate change and global injustice by asking you to do something that you have control over. You have control over what the foundation invests its funds in. And previous interactions with the foundation, we've been told that it's out of your hands, you don't have a choice, you have to do your job. But crises are fueled by people doing their jobs. We're asking you to do the right thing, to do the thing that would represent the views of the faculty and staff at Oregon State University. We're asking you to not invest in a fossil fuel company.
For years and years, I've been studying critical thinking, and it's become especially interesting to me to think about the critical thinking that is going on in the divestment struggle. Because the reasons that people give to say that a university should not divest seem to me to be classic examples of fallacies. So let me tell you an example. People who don't want to divest say, oh, but divestment won't really bring down the corporations. We don't have that much money in them to make the tiniest bit of difference. That is a classic straw person argument. A straw person argument is an argument in which you argue against a conclusion that no one is putting forth and claim that you've destroyed their argument. No divestment advocate is arguing that we should divest in order to ruin the fossil fuel companies. Divestment isn't about being against anything. Divestment is about saving your own integrity. Divestment will not bring down the fossil fuel industry, but it might allow the university to claim that it really is acting in the interests of its students, which after all is the purpose of a university.
I'm very passionate about the divestment campaign. I think the biggest issue facing humankind is our collective lethargy. We're asleep. So many of us are just so focused and busy on the everyday. For me, divestment is just represents just a wake-up call. It's a big statement. It's a big moral statement.
These are my thoughts on divestment. I basically think that it's a thing that really should be a no-brainer. This should have happened years ago if we really are serious about the climate catastrophe that's coming. Like, I assume most of you, if not all of you, agree that it is real, because this very institution produces science confirming this. So, like, that is a given. And if we understand that it's a reality and we know that it will have disastrous conflicts, I think that it is, frankly, a moral concern to be. I think it's immoral that we would be, this institution would be making money off of, by feeding into this thing that's going to be hugely disastrous for people and ecosystems.
The only meaningful and reasonable choice for the future is to divest for anything that some way is connected to fossil fuel.
A closed-door meeting? What are you afraid of? The voices of the students and the citizens should be heard and valued. Your decisions affect everyone.
When our planet is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! When our future is under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back! When our planet is under attack, what do we do? We must fight back!